It's been possibly a couple of weeks. It's been very crazy, actually. Things have been very crazy. I'm using the lapel microphone, so I did test it. I swear to you, so if you can't hear this plea of mine is going to fall on deaf ears, but I did test it, so it should be working. Camera's working. We're 30 seconds in. It's very good. And this is the 22nd iteration of the 30 iterations, 30 minutes. And the reason I went on live today is I just felt I haven't been on for so long, and it's like I've got to follow through. I've got to get to 30. And so I just had to go live. It's as simple as that. And did I have any thoughts about it? I actually did. Something occurred to me when I've been having, it's not a crisis. It's not a crisis, but I've had what I would call my Icarus. I just discovered who Icarus was. And I realized I think I might have had an Icarus moment, like, flying, the story of Icarus being that, I'll probably get it wrong, but Icarus flew too close to the sun and his wings melted because I think Daedalus was a good engineer, was good at making things. Now, am I mixing up my metaphors? I may well be, but Daedalus is on my mind. And Icarus has popped into my head. Now, let's just get Daedalus out of the way. Well, let's talk about Icarus first. Okay. Two things which I'm no expert about, but I shall now proceed to inform you of the Icarus person. So, what Icarus, whenever I do that, it's because some annoying thing just popped up on my phone and I'm just getting rid of it. So, that's what that little nervous tick is. It's not that I have a nervous tick, but that is what that is. So, essentially, what Icarus, the story of Icarus is he just, I think, was overly ambitious and he flew too close to the sun. He think, well, I can reach the sun. That's how very great I am. I can reach the sun, no problem. I can do everything. I can have it all. And in the last couple of weeks, I've been leading into that sort of direction. I don't see myself as I am ambitious. I mean, let's get one thing clear. I don't think you become an artist because you don't think you have something to say. Now, the thing that I'm most driven by is finding the thing to say, saying the thing. All right. It's not necessarily about being the most well known for saying the thing, but I want to say something. I really don't think that I've made this choice, taken on this path to not say something, and that'd be stupid. I've got a friend of mine who says that artists, there's a certain amount of self-delusion that is required to be an artist. You have to believe that the piece you're working on, the thing you're doing, is groundbreaking, is pushing some boundary that is so extraordinary that you have to do it. You have to, and that's what has to drive you. It's that impulse. And if it isn't, well, then why are you doing it? It's like a scientist. If you don't think, look, there are lots of reasons for doing science. There are lots of ways you can do it. But if you of the bent that is wanting to go somewhere unknown, you have to believe that's where you're going. You may be disproved, but you have to have that belief going in. And I, it's actually quite, like, I'm quite confronted by this recognition that I had the sense that, I can go anywhere. I need to go in as many places as I can, take this thing. And one of the things that happened was, I thought, so I had a bit of a let's call it not a revelation, but I thought, I need to take art and science. I'm a performer now. I want to perform this thing. I must turn it into a product. I must go into schools. I must go into universities. I must tell the story wherever I can. And I think that's still true. I think I still want to tell the story. But what I realized was, by turning myself into a product like that, by then becoming, I'm not saying this is a wrong path, but I don't think it's my path. I really don't think this is the path that I should be taking. Whereas I then go into schools in some sort of formalized brand-like way and tell what could be a really interesting and compelling story. But I think the act of putting yourself in a box like that, in a kind of brand, is for me, for the path that I've chosen, diminishing. Now, the question I have to ask is, am I saying that because I'm too scared to go there, to actually do the work required to become a product? Now, I've really thought carefully about that. And I don't think so. It feels like now that I've entertained the idea, I've entertained it in the sense that I want to sell this product. I mean, that is really what it is, selling a product. No matter how good I believe the product to be, it's still a product, still a product. And I do believe that is diminishing to what my purpose is. I think it's diminishing to what my purpose is. For the simple fact is, I do believe this. This is to be the artist or the explorer, or the artist, or the scientist that I've chosen to be. I have to accept that requires constantly walking into the unknown, constantly engaging with the unknown. The moment you form yourself into a product, a recognizable brand, I think you lose that to some extent. Well, I think I will lose that. I will give up something. I don't want to compromise that drive that takes me into the unknown. I don't want to compromise that. I'd much rather not have the safety that I think I could get by branding myself to some extent. I don't want that safety. I really don't. I don't want to know what it is that I am. I do not want to know what it is that I am. What's the point of that? And again, I stress this is the path that I believe in. So yeah, it was clarifying, because I think to some extent I'm a bit of an experiential learner. Like, I need to put it out there to discover what it is that I'm not looking for. You know, and that is a discovery that I've now made. And I now need to, the challenge for me is now to be true to that, to hang on to that. I've got to be true to that now. That is what I have to do. Yeah, that's my challenge. So that's what when I decided, I have to go live again, that's what I felt, what I really wanted to tell you. So that's the formal part of the proceedings over with. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to read to you. This is a book that I was talking about Daedalus, right? Why was I mentioning Daedalus? Daedalus. Reason being, thinking about machines. I mean, like, what are these things called machines? And the reason I'm thinking about machines is because one of the projects that I'm currently engaged in, and I'm writing I want to submit a paper to a conference that is happening. I've got a month to write this paper. I've been actually writing for over a year now, but I've got a month to sort of actually pin it down. You know, and that's not so. Putting down a paper, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I mean, that's because I do feel, actually, that was part of the issue. Is like, I thought, well, if I'm saying that I don't want to be this brand, I want to be doing this, and I thought, yeah, that feels like something I need to be doing. That feels like the right conversation that I should be having. And what it is, I have to think about what my machine is, what these machines actually are, what kind of machines do we have in the world. And Daedalus came up. Well, because I guess the story of Daedalus came, written at the time. Whoever conceived of these mythical humans came at a time before actual mechanical systems were invented. They inspired. Now, this is quite an interesting idea. And I think this is quite beautiful, actually. And I haven't really concretized this thought. But it's another example of where the imagination, and maybe it's always like this, I don't know, but I actually don't think it is always like this, but where the imagination leads the hand, okay? So here, our ability to imagine by being the storytellers that we are, this idea of someone being a great craftsman who can make wings that can fly. Somebody would have encountered that myth and then made wings and then made aeroplanes. You see that the thinking here. The other way to discover is by just following what the hands are making and see what they're telling you. So those are the two. And funnily enough, I'm now pushing my luck a bit, but the one is a kind of Platonic thinking, is that you can idealize a form in your head and then try and make it, and you realize, well, you can't quite make the idealized form. And the other one is where you get in the world and you start moving things around, you experience, you get evidence, and then you understand the world, craft your thought, your story through the evidence that you've encountered. I was actually saying to my son, we're going away on a family holiday in a couple of weeks, and he's writing down the days, he's counting down, and he wanted to write that there are 18 days left, but he wanted to write it yesterday. I said, but we don't know that tomorrow is coming. You can use inductive logic to really say, if you write that number down, you kind of, you're going by prediction, you're predicting that the next day will arrive. Rather go by evidence, I said to him. Wait for the next day. And if it arrives, then write the 18, because then you're being led by evidence. Now, I'm not saying it's good to predict things, right? But it's an interesting kind of tension there. This idea of, on the one hand, predicting something that requires a certain amount of inductive thinking, that you've seen something before, so this is probably going to happen again. Tomorrow is probably going to happen because it's happened so often in the past. Versus evidence, where you actually say, well, I don't know, but let's see if tomorrow arrives. Let's wait. Let's just go to sleep and see if the next day does arrive. You can live like that. You can actually live in that kind of curiosity-based way, like when you go to bed tonight, like, I wonder if that'll happen again. I mean, it seems pretty likely, but you don't take it for granted. It's like kind of an exciting way to live, if you think about it. All right, enough about that. I'm going to read to you a passage from a most wonderful book, and I haven't picked a passage, but I'm always inspired by this book. This is Erwin Schrödinger, What is Life? I should tell you about this book, since I'm holding it up here. Erwin Schrödinger was a very famous quantum physicist. I think he described quantum mechanics using the wave equation, the most well-known wave equation, to discuss and describe how a quantum system evolves. He also then took to, he fled Austria before the war, and I think he settled in Ireland. And I was quite shocked. This book was published in 1944. I thought it's really interesting that an Austrian is writing a book about what is life at the height of the Second World War. There's kind of a certain irony, but he was definitely not on the side of the Nazi war machine, let's just say. Anyway, he wrote this book, and it's a very compelling book because, and I think this book is really interesting even today, and I'll tell you why. Because in the past, like biologists would think about what life was, but they think about it from the emergent properties, like what is respiration, what is intelligence, what is agency, what are all these kind of higher level concepts, all right, which are kind of difficult to get a handle on. All right, now bear with me because I'm going somewhere with this. Erwin Schrödinger came along and said, well, I'm going to look at it more humbly than that. I'm going to look at it like a physicist looks at the world. In other words, at a very particular, very sort of down there level. And can we see a difference between a living system and a non-living system? Is really the question. Or what are the properties of a living system if you're very naive about it? And I like to say, as I like to approach things as a scientist, I like to think of myself as an interplanetary scientist. So when I encounter even going to bed the night before, like I don't know if the next day is coming because I'm from another planet. I don't know what next days are. I'm that naive about the world. We are extremely encumbered. I use the word encumbered, which I think is an interesting word, by past experience, by what we already know about the world. Got an Aboriginal friend, colleague, artist, who talks about the unknowing, going from unknowing to knowing. You know, that's an interesting thing. But can we ever go from knowing to unknowing? I don't know. And I think it's a necessary condition. I think we always, possibly in a microcosmic way, always have to go from knowing to unknowing, because it keeps us humble. Now, The point about why this book I think is relevant today is because we now, of course, are dealing with artificial intelligence. I've just got an email from Kathmandu. Important changes to Summer Club. I don't know what that is. I don't know why I'm getting emails from Kathmandu. But the point I'm trying to make is we live in a world where artificial intelligence is challenging our very thoughts on what it means to be a human being. Right? Am I right? I know I am. I'm right. And how we are trying to understand artificial intelligence is we're trying to ask the question: is it intelligent? Is it conscious? Now, I think it's possible that those are just as Erwin Schrödinger said how many years ago? Was it 80 years ago? They're the wrong questions. Well, I'm not saying they're the wrong questions, but they're not necessarily the questions we should necessarily be relying on. The question I ask is, can we ask questions about what artificial intelligence is, large language models, generative AI, or from a more basic level? Like, what does it mean? What are the physical interactions that one has or that things have with AI? What's the physics of artificial intelligence? Just for one thing, it seems to be non-local, right? It seems to be a distributive kind of thing. Like, my intelligence is located here. I might have some access to intelligence because of the way I'm wired up to the internet and because of the way when I encounter people every day, there's a transfer of intelligence, transfer of information. AI might be something completely different. So that's what I mean by looking at the physics of it. Let's be naive. And this is the paper I'm trying to write. This is the study I'm trying to do with my colleague, Dr. Matthew Broom, physicist. Can we be super naive about what this thing is that we've just encountered? And we really have just encountered it. So like gravity, like salt, it's a phenomenon in the world. And a phenomenon in the world that is newly emerged, we don't know what it is. We encounter it. By claiming intelligence, by claiming consciousness, we're laboring it, encumbering it with all of our past thinking. And that might, and I'm not saying it is the wrong way to go, but it might be limiting us. So I would like to, this morning, honor this man, and yes, even the chicken. Let's honor the chicken. That's the egg that it popped out of, presumably. Let's honor all of the creatures represented on the book of this cover. Let's honor this creature who's standing here before you, and let us celebrate that. What else can I tell you? Working on several projects, and mostly the writing at the moment. I was going to read you a passage. All right, let's see if I can find something. I would have highlighted something here. I'm just going to read one that I've seemed to have highlighted. All right, here we go. Erwin Schrödinger, from What is Life? Well, this is a fantastic description, perhaps less becoming a scientist than a poet. However, pity I didn't read the actual description of which was a bit poetic, but bear with me here. However, it needs no poetical imagination, but only clear and sobering scientific reflection to recognize that we are here obviously faced with events whose regular and lawful unfolding is guided by a mechanism entirely different from the probability mechanisms of physics. So he's talking about the difference in life and, let's say, an idealized situation, a container of particles bashing about. For it is simply a fact of observation, there, the naive scientist looking in, that the guiding principle in every cell is embodied in a single atomic association existing only in one copy or sometimes two. And a fact of observation that it results in producing events which are a paragon of orderliness, whenever we find it astonishing or whether we find it quite plausible that a small but highly organized group of atoms be capable of acting in this manner. The situation is unprecedented. It is unknown anywhere else except in living matter. So really all he's saying, and it's a lot, but what he's saying is that if you take particles in a box, it's statistical. If you take one atom versus any other atom, you will not be able to predict where it'll be It's just going to be randomly moving around. There's statistical behavior. Whereas in a living cell, you can take an atom, which maybe is found in a piece of DNA, and you know exactly, in a very orderly way, what the next thing that's going to happen is. There's an orderly event going on, which is not happening in a random situation. Now, chemical reactions are orderly events, but there's a certain way they are not controlled. They are not managed. What I think he's saying is in a cell, the process is extremely well managed. And to be honest, if it wasn't, we'd all pop up in a puff of smoke from all the oxidation. So that didn't happen. Might happen in a minute, but you'll be able to see it because we had 20 minutes. If I pop up in flames in 21 minutes, it just means that, there's a probability that in that instant moment, all the systems just kind of went a little bit random, and they did not behave in an orderly way, and all the chemical reactions kind of went off and were not managed and regulated. So I think that's kind of the point he's trying to make here. So it's the interplanetary scientist analogy is a really good one here, because Erwin Schrödinger was a physicist, and so it's like taking a person from one thing and just he wanders into life. What the hell is that? Why is that so different from me studying the atom? Why is studying an amoeba so different from studying the atom? And then he asks very naive questions, which reminds me once again, there are no naive questions. Am I right? You know I am. Yes. Okay, fantastically good. Okay, so that's the formal part of the proceedings. Cheers. Not going to drink that. That's good. Not drink that. Let's go through this tripod box. Spray paint. Yes. Why do I have spray paint on my desk? Well, reason being, I want to frame a drawing. All right. I want to frame a drawing. Let's go to the drawing. I don't want to frame. Follow me. It doesn't look right here because it's unframed and it's not sitting properly. But I've decided. So this framing, this drawing, you can sort of see it, right? It's on these very loose. You might have seen. I must have done this before. Just going to slowly scan over it. I want to frame that, and I don't make my life easy. Like in my good old days, I painted on canvas, stretched canvas. The joy of that is you buy a piece of stretched canvas or you stretch it yourself, and then you paint on it, and it's done. You hang it up on the wall, and you can frame it if you want, but you don't have to. It's all stretched and it's wonderful paper. There's something about closer to the source. I don't know. I don't know what it is about paper. I just like, what? It's not so serious. Paper's not so serious, but of course it gets serious, So I did that work, and I've got to frame it. So now I took it to a framer, very, very good framer, like an amazing framer. He's done one piece for me before, but I just thought I cannot spend that kind of money. It's just no matter how much I believe in the work, and I do believe in the work, I can't justify that kind of expense at this stage. I really can't. So I'm going to frame it myself. So which means I've got to now hopefully not get that wrong. So I'm basically preparing a piece of plywood, spray painting it white. I'm going to then place this thing, sew it onto the plywood. This quite vast, uneven drawing, uneven in the way it's built and uneven. And then I'm hopefully going to be able to. I need to do that like quite soon because I want to submit that to an art drawing prize or to an art prize because. Well, you have to. If you're going to be an artist in Australia, you don't have to do anything. Okay. But one of the ways to be an artist in Australia is they've got a plethora of science art prizes. And I must say, I remember a very long time ago, I was at the Dobell Drawing Prize, and we were like, I was with a friend of mine, and I was like, it's all nonsense, all these prizes. But they're only nonsense until you get one in and you think, oh my God, no, these prizes are really important, and they are. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. Like, I definitely thought they were nonsense, and then I got a drawing into a prize, which I'm going to Canberra for next week. Now I think these prizes are really a good thing and a fantastic way to kind of move into the future. Fickle the human is. All right. Anyway, so let's take a look at this one. This is let's do a little walkabout. There's a few different things going on. I'll show you this drawing here. So that is kind of a little bit weirdly out of focus because this is a portrait of myself. And I did this. It's quite an interesting experience because I literally went into my studio, took my clothes off, and I managed to sort of stick a mirror up, just so you can see what that might look like. Stick a mirror up, just like that. See? Can you see? You can see yourself in there. Can you see that? So just as I managed to stick a mirror up, and then I proceeded to draw myself, but not in the kind of way that's, I love dynamic objects, right? I don't really believe in things being static, but they never are. Things are never static. So what I set about doing was I set about drawing myself, um, and what that basically meant was I kept moving because I'm not a con. I'm I refuse to be static even for myself. It turns out, and then I had to keep drawing and just keep moving, and what that resulted in was a a rather interesting portrait, I think, of myself in motion, stepping up, moving down. I had to peer around the cupboard a bit because my space is so kind of cramped that there's really nowhere to kind of stick a mirror up and then get the right kind of perspective and all that. So, to be honest, that's what I liked. I liked that drawing was a little bit dynamic and kind of you don't know where the head is and where the tail ends, if you forgive the pun. Now, what we have over here, another project, doing a lot of animations lately. I haven't really been online much. Is because my camera's been busy. It's been making animations. This is one of the animations was using these arms, this coffee cup, those arms over there, all attached to my drawing machine. And so I thought, well, when I was finished with it, I thought, I'm not ready to, I wanted to idealize that in a drawing, in a classic drawing. So I kind of wanted to, what I mean by a classic drawing, it's almost like I'm trying to draw the mechanism that sits underneath it all, as if it was an engineer of the process. So that's kind of the imp to do this. I don't know where it's going yet. It's very early days. What I've written there on top is can't help thinking that all of this is just me trying to become a bird. That's the word, that's the phrase that I was compelled to write in that instance. So I did. And yeah, what else? Where else can we go? I mean, yeah, I'm in the sort of in the process of making a machine, which I don't know where that's going to go. But the thinking was I wanted to reconstitute a lot of these drawings and these animations are somehow me trying. Okay, what they are is me as a machine. So that's right. I remember now. So why did I start animating? Why did I start animating my machines? Because if you're not an engineer, a fantastic way to make a machine move is to draw it moving. Then you don't have to actually get good with the wires and the clicky things and the batteries and I don't know all that. You just don't have to. You could just literally make it look like it's a machine. So I've been doing quite a lot of that, and I thought, well, that's me trying to become the machine, and I love that because I've been building machines for some time now, and I see them as models of myself. And then I noticed that I'm starting to try and draw like my machine. So I'm not trying to become like my model. Am I trying to become this, emulate my machine? Like, am I starting to, I call myself, and I did bi-curious. Like, I want to love humans and machines. That's what I am. I'm bi-curious. So that's what I'm exploring. When I do these animations, I'm really trying to integrate, to some extent, my psychology with the psychology of the machine. See if we can just explore it. Like I don't know what it is. Like I'm always I like the boundaries, right? Art and science, human machine. Everything's at a boundary of something. There's a beautiful quote I read an article in LinkedIn the other day. When the peripherals, you start exploring the periphery, that becomes the center of the thing. When two edges come together, it becomes a new center. That's kind of a beautiful thought. And arguably, that's the thought that I'm going to leave you on. I should try and find out what that article is. Maybe I'll find it and post it in the comment section. That'd be extremely organized if I managed to pull that off. Anyway, good to see you all again. Be senior, as they say.